Hello, everybody. I'm here with Steve Heller. My name is Dan O'Rourke, and we just want to do a quick talk with you about the four big ideas that AP Language and Composition is is divided into. So here, what I've done for you on the screen is I've shared the AP Language and Composition course framework sheet. It's actually page 19 of the curriculum of the course and exam description. And so real quickly, I just want to review these four big ideas. And I want to talk a little bit about how we might want to attack them when we're teaching this class. So the first big idea is called the rhetorical situation, and each big idea is linked with an enduring understanding. The way this course is set up is we have skills that we want our kids to practice with in order to gain enduring understandings of these big ideas. So the rhetorical situation, the enduring understanding is individuals write within a particular situation and make strategic writing choices based on that situation. The second big idea that we want to focus on in this course is called claims and evidence. And the enduring understanding attached to claims and evidence, as you can see, is writers make claims about subjects, rely on evidence that support the reasoning that justifies the claim, and often acknowledge or respond to other possibly opposing arguments. The third big idea is reasoning and organization, and you can see the enduring understanding that is attached to reasoning and organization. And finally, style. So Steve, I know.
Yeah, I have a question about this, Dan. You know, so I'm a new teacher to the class, and I see these four big ideas, and I also see on another sheet, not that we have to go to it, that style really is featured in units 7, 8, and 9, and rhetorical situation is featured in really particularly unit 1. So am I supposed to sort of approach the class that, okay, for the first 25% of the year, I deal with big idea number 1, and then the second 25% of the year, I deal with big idea number 2? Is that what I'm supposed to do with this?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want to do that. These four big ideas should be integrated. When we're teaching our kids rhetorical analysis, these are four big ideas that are integrated throughout the course. For instance, rhetorical situation is understanding, among other things, what the writer's purpose is. So, the purpose, oftentimes, more often than not really, is going to be linked to the central claim of the text. So, therefore, you see a link between purpose, which is part of the rhetorical situation, and claim, which is claims and evidence. In order for a writer then to be convincing about a claim that he or she is making, the writer is going to want to provide evidence.
All right, Dan, I'm going to just interrupt you for a second and ask you one more question. So when I'm trying to figure out a text and analyze a text or even compose my own text, am I correct in thinking that big idea number 1, rhetorical situation, is the same starting point for every writer and every reader? Is it possible that, let's say style could be sort of the first big idea that comes to mind? What are your thoughts?
Well, style, I think I'm understanding. Do you want a stylistic element to be the first big idea that you want to talk about when writing an analysis of a text? Is that what your question is?
Or even just decoding a text or paying attention to it, because some kids might have an easier time sort of figuring out first sort of the patterns of the language, and then some kids might go to the purpose, like you were talking about a minute ago. What's right. Your recommendation?
Well, I have different recommendations according to who my students are in front of me. Many of my students who've been in a lit class might be very familiar with analyzing stylistic elements in a literary analysis fashion. So you might want to use that as a step into rhetorical analysis. So by that reasoning, starting with style is a good idea.
Yeah, it's an interesting question that I wrestle with, because a lot of it, I think I agree with you, a lot of it depends upon who the student is. Is it okay if we can try to jump to the next slide?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so we thought we would just model this on the 2019 rhetorical analysis prompt, and for those of you that don't know, this is a prompt where Mohandas Gandhi is writing to Viceroy Lord Irwin about the unjust salt laws, and this prompt asks students to analyze Gandhi's rhetorical choices in supporting a nonviolent approach. And so if we take into account what Dan was sharing with us, and we just go through those 4 big ideas, we can understand the rhetorical situation by just looking at the language on the prompt. In fact, that it takes a lot of time and energy. We want to make sure that students understand the situation, the context for this. And
then you can see the first few sentences of the prompt will tell the students who the audience is, who the speaker is, who the audience is, what the situation is. Right. So it gives a lot of the rhetorical situation right there.
And in fact, Dan, am I correct in thinking too that as of this year, 2020, even the message is going to be a little more explicit in that opening language. In other words, this one, 2019, analyze rhetorical choices Gandhi makes to present his case to Lord Irwin. But even in the future, we'll be able to see a little more language that identifies his case, let's say, advocating, nonviolent resistance. Is that accurate?
That is, yeah. So, and what we were saying before is the purpose of his letter is inextricably linked to his major claim, right, in this case.
So a lot of those elements that are identified in the opening units of the course framework are actually found right up here in the actual prompt. In terms of the claims and evidence, we're not going to take you through this whole thing, but Gandhi's language really is a textbook approach of how you can look at things at the micro level. In other words, what Gandhi himself was up to in terms of his own narrative, his own life experience that happens over here, but also in terms of the larger institutions, the unjust laws, and he gets to that later in his letter. It's also a very logical way of approaching an argument. Start small. I'm going to look at my own life experience here, and then I'm going to move to something larger, the larger institutions, the iniquitous laws. Even the way he's ending, his use of the word sacred, really gets at a larger view towards humanity. In fact, back to that style. I'm sorry, Dan?
No, I was excellent. I was just going to say, so really you just talked about two different big ideas. The organization of the text would be linked, would be part of the reasoning and organization big idea. And then that repetition of sacred is a stylistic element, is that choice, that word choice of sacred is more stylistic.
Right, and in fact, and one of the things that sacred does, it sort of plays off the word evil, which if I'm not mistaken shows up twice in this. And back to my earlier question here, when we look at a word like iniquitous in line 52, or even the independence movement, I'm not sure that all students have as much of that sort of, for lack of a better word, judicial awareness of the world. But they may know words like sacred or evil, and they may have a way of accessing the prompt through that way. And so that might be something that, like you were saying, kids who have more experience in a literature class, or just maybe
right, and even some kids with the more, maybe a greater command of language, won't necessarily have an advantage because even a kid with not such a great command of language is going to be able to find the words like sacred and evil accessible.
Right. And I would say too, Dan, that for many of our students, the choreography of these big ideas would be, first, how do we see it playing out in other people's writings, so in this case, Gandhi's, and then how does it manifest itself in our own writing? So I can envision, for example, a writing assignment where students are asked to address an unjust practice, or offer a solution, as Gandhi does, to something that they see as unfair, and maybe to follow some of the moves that Gandhi has done, or to emulate them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, just to maybe use evidence to support their claim, but then also to maybe make some stylistic choices.
That's right.
Strategic stylistic choices to make that claim even more potent.
All right, then. So it's a nice way of looking at these four big ideas, and thank you for taking a few moments out to listen to us.
Great talking to you, Steve.
You too, Dan. Thank you.